Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. This is Abhijit Bhaduri, and welcome to this first edition, so to speak. The previous one was just a pilot, but this is the first edition of Blind Date. So, welcome.
Hi, this is Ron. And for those of you who may not have met Abhijit earlier, that was his best movie trailer voice. And Abhijit, if you're gonna continue with this movie trailer voice, how about we hear your signature tune? Do we get to hear your signature tune today?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, here is the signature tune, guys. Enjoy. That was it. Ron, over to you.
Well, thank you, Abhijit. And yeah, I was just trying to visualize you doing the next 15 minutes with movie trailer voice, but then no, I don't think we should inflict that on our listeners. And we have 8 listeners. And thanks to all of you for joining us. And remember, the pressure's on because we try to hit double figures. And look, our aspirations are quite simple. We want to hit double figures. So if you know a friend, ask them to join in. So let's just start this afternoon's chat. So I'm speaking to you from Sydney in Australia, and we are currently in a lockdown. That
And
word is
that's
not
the
new to
afternoon
any of
part of it.
us. But what we've been doing is, well, like a lot of people watching, I watch a lot of television. And I ended up watching a series called Ray on Netflix. I'm not sure how many of you have seen it. If you have, feel free to tap in below. Well, I personally enjoyed it, at least some of the stories, and I shared it with a couple of my friends. And I was kind of interested at the range of reactions that I got. To summarize, those friends of mine who were, let's say, who grew up in Calcutta, who had more than just a passing familiarity with Ray's work, they were quite upset with me for liking the TV series. It was, how could you sort of thing? This great betrayal of Ray. But then there were people like me who met Ray and his work later in life. And therefore, for us, for me anyway, it was a decent show. I enjoyed a couple of the stories, and that was about it. Which got me thinking, and I shared this with Abhijit and Anjan. When you redo a classic or what is considered a classic, have you also met very strong reactions? Abhijit, would you like to share any of your experiences in this area?
Yeah, sure. We already have a couple of opinions. So Ritu is here. Ritu Chuk says, I saw one episode and didn't like it at all. Anurag says, yes, me too, enjoyed it mostly as an independent series. So I think what happens is when we read a book, pretty much if we take the book to movie situation, when we read a book, automatically, if it's good writing, you tend to visualize it. When you visualize it, no matter what, how good the adaptation is on screen, it will always be different from what you've imagined, and therefore you feel let down. So this is the first hypothesis I want to explore. Ahna, what is your take?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I have only watched 3 of the 4 uh, films in Ray, but I had vastly different reactions when I started watching. When I watched the first 2, I really did not like it, and I happen to be Ray obsessed simply because I was brought up in Bengal, and Ray sort of seeps into your mindset. He's such an integral part of our growing up years. We sort of most of us kind of internalize what we assume are Ray's aesthetics and his, viewpoint towards life. So when I watched the first 2, the first, in fact, was I think Forget Me Not, which is based on the story that's called Bipin Chaudhary's Memory Loss. And I happened to read that story yesterday. It was a coincidence. And I realized that Srijit Mukherjee has taken the basic device, which is the memory loss and the implanted memories, but he has modernized the story around it. And I mean, at the end of the day, filmmaking is a creative process. It is absolutely his right to do that. And should we declare stories and spaces and authors as, sacred territories that nobody can explore simply because we think they have reached the heights? Absolutely not. We'll stifle all creativity doing that. But having said that, can we really control the response of people to the thing that you make? I don't think we should even attempt to do that, because there is such a thing as good cinema, and or whatever, good cinema, bad cinema could be relative. But when I happened to watch the first one, Srijit Mukherjee is one of Bengal's, finest known contemporary filmmakers. And what seemed to me was that he couldn't touch upon the nerve of Ray, like he couldn't capture the spirit of Ray in the film. But very interestingly, when I watched the third film, which is Hangama Kyun Hai Barpa, which is I think directed by Abhishek Chaube, he has done a wonderful job. So, but coming back to this thing of adaptations, I think, like what you mentioned, your imagined world will never live up to the exact science of filmmaking, which is committing somebody's imagination to paper, and there will always be a dissonance between these two worlds. And and I think for most Bengalis who've grown up watching Ray, reading Ray, that dizziness is something that we are dealing with through our lived experience of watching new filmmakers make Ray's movies. I think it's important to note here that Ray's own son, Sandeep Ray, has made a lot of movies like that are based on Ray's short stories, and it's not like he's been immune to the criticism. So Ray's own son couldn't live up to that, the aura of Ray, and people always said that these movies are nothing like our original Feluda movies, and it was true. That was that. But having said that, Ray himself couldn't live up to the genius of Tagore, because I remember watching a
Exactly.
Ritu Parno Ghosh interview wherein he says that Ray's Ghore by Ray, even though it was a great work of art, it did not touch upon the very basic essence of Tagore. He didn't think, Ritu Parno Ghosh didn't think that Ray could bring alive the heart of Tagore. But these are all personal interpretations, and I think that's where the fun is really, and that's why we can argue about this till the end of time. Essentially, yeah, that's what I feel about the situation.
We've got a bunch of comments. Ritu says that she saw one episode and didn't like it at all. So Deepa says, I like the movie Chocolate, but the book turned out to be disappointing. And Anurag says, Behrupia was probably closer. Divya says, so nicely put, Anna. So I want to hear, what, if any of you want to join in, any one of you can just, press the mic and then join in as a speaker. But in the meanwhile, we haven't heard from Anjan. Anjan, why don't you introduce yourself and then tell us what you think? Why do we hate adaptations?
Sorry, Abhijit, just before we go further, you have us at a bit of a disadvantage. We heard Anna's very eloquent and wonderful comment, but unfortunately, I've never met Anna. So why don't you help us just introduce us to Anna before we move to
I
Anjan?
haven't met her either. Anna, why don't you introduce yourself? So,
Oh, a true blind date. That is awesome. We've got ourselves a blind date.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Ahana. I work in advertising. I am a copywriter. And I just like listening to people talking about Ray and Tagore and all things very cliched and Bengali. I have taken this opportunity to jump into this conversation because I'm also very curious to know how other people feel about this.
Thank
thanks.
you, Anna.
Anjan?
So, Abhijit, I was asked very often, especially during my flirtation with
Are you
Bollywood.
related to Ray?
Exactly. That was the question I was asked. You knew, you said it. And I would usually say, no, I hope to be more famous someday. That was what I used to say back then. But, jokes apart, coming back to the concept of adaptations, I won't engage Ahana at the literary level that she just expounded upon. I will take a more philosophical view, being a scientist, that adaptations are a form of natural selection and only the fittest survive. So why complain? If somebody wishes to adapt an art, let that adaptation happen. I mean, I'm thinking of Ram Gopal Verma's Aag as a variant of Sholay, or so many remakes of movies, and some of them do work out reasonably well. And like Abhijit said, some books become classics and then the movie never matches up to it. But yet, those who've seen Gone with the Wind, the movie, before reading the book, might actually say the movie was reasonably faithful. I will try and take you back about 300 years to the 1750s to a piece of music composed by Mozart's father, Leopold Mozart. And what I'm going to play a very brief snatch of is a piece that is almost forgotten in its original version. It was a mini symphony, and it was redone supposedly by Haydn's younger brother, Michael Haydn, as a joke with toys. So, in a very special performance that I will play for you, this is Zubin Mehta on the flute mimicking the cuckoo, with four challenged children playing the version performed with a baby's rattle, three bird call whistles, and a one note toy trumpet and a tin soldier's drums. So, this is a toy symphony, and this is an adaptation, but the adaptation has outlived the original. If you cannot hear it, let me know. I'm using very
No,
high
we can't hear it yet.
Okay, this is like seriously high-tech stuff happening. Okay, so we shall see.
Hi, Maestro. How are you doing? You okay? Your stand is here. Where is your baton? Can I use it? Okay, thank you. You're so flexible. Like this. This is yours. Choose one. Choose the right one. Good. Okay. This will be here. Okay, one I have. I need practice. I want to hear. Let's hear.
A little bit of pre-toy banter.
Are you auditioning? Yes. Okay, more espacito. Fortissimo doesn't work. Try. Okay. Oh, good. One octave above. Good. You have two octaves already. Great. So you will be here. Is it okay, Saida, if the maestro is here? Are you? Great. Now I need three more kids. אני צריך שלושה ילדים. תסמן לך כך, תסתכלי עליי, תשימי מטוש.
So there you go, a short snatch of what is a really hit-making classic, something that was probably popular. It was pop music in its own time, became classical, became the toy symphony kind of retro pop, and it's again classical today. So I am not against adaptations at all. I think adaptations are fun, and I think unless you try, you will never discover. Okay, back to Abhijit.
Hey, thanks, Anjan. That was brilliant. So initially the sound was not very clear, but once the music came on, it was delightful. And Ritu wants to know: are we limited to Ray's adaptations? The answer is no. I was actually going to bring up the fact that what happens when there are like 10 versions of the same thing. For example, Devdas. The story has been made in multiple languages, multiple times. I mean, from Bimal Roy to the more recent version. And the versions in Telugu, etc. I mean, there are a whole lot of versions of the movie Devdas. None of them, I guess when you make the same movie multiple times, only a few get compared to each other. So I sometimes wonder whether it's a safer option to take the story and change the language. What do you think? I mean, do you think that's a smarter way to, get past this whole problem? What would the others say? Anyone?
So, Abhijit, I could jump in here, and this is from the response to an adaptation perspective, right? So, I did what you did. I watched, so not what you did, Ron did. I think I watched Ray first without having read any of Satyajit Ray's works, right? And as a story, I watched Forget Me Nots, and it was a good story in itself, right? And then I was curious, so I went and tried to read the actual story that it was based on, at least an English translation of it, right? Now, from a psychological process, the reason why responses are, again, we anchor to the original piece. If we know that there is an original and there is a fake, when you're evaluating the fake, you can't move away from the original anchor, right? So you're evaluating it kind of respective to that, unfortunately. And that's why this whole varied responses to think about fan fiction, think about covers in musical bands, right? They're all adaptations, and people hate. You listen to a popular piece of music, and when you listen to the cover, something's just not right, right? Like it just doesn't fit or sit well. And that is because of the whole anchoring effect, right? And I think that if you hadn't heard the original, and Abhijit, to answer your question, right? If you do it into another language, a literary piece of art in one language or work in one language into another, the chances are that people haven't heard of that before. And therefore, they'll evaluate the piece as is for itself and not compared to the anchor piece, right? So yes, it would make a difference is that's what I want.
Ritu wants to add that Detective Bonkesh Bakshi never was a fan of the TV series, but the movie starring Sushant Singh Rajput was bloody brilliant. Watched it twice. So there you go. I mean, you can have multiple adaptations, but I wonder whether even when you create a character. So for me, when I read Satyajit Ray's Feluda, which was one of my favorite detectives, when I watched Soumitra play Feluda, that seemed like a very natural choice. I would have. I mean, if I had made that movie, I would have also said, yeah, Soumitra Chatterjee really looks like Feluda. But later on, when I saw other, actors play the same character, it left me cold. Again, maybe it is because of the anchoring effect. Anjan, Ahana, Ron, any of you, Divya, please feel free.
Well, actually, Abhijit, to jump in here for two reasons. First, we have hit 11 listeners. So, hey, I'm giving myself a pat on the back. We hit double figures again. Yay, right? The other thing, I was delighted to hear the conversation move beyond, to Ritu's point, beyond Ray's works. And Divya spoke of music and other things. And we heard words like anchor, which could be your original imagination or your original experience. We heard phrases like, the original versus the fake, if not the interpretation. And I think these are the kind of thoughts that should be in our minds. But I can't resist to, Anjan, Abhijit, all you guys, to do what I would call my mainstream takedown. In other words, I want to move beyond music, movies, and share an experience I had which caused me great consternation. Let me explain. Over here in Sydney, my sons took me to this brilliant new restaurant with an Indian origin. It's called Don't Tell Auntie. So the chef there has given his own twist or interpretation to a lot of dishes which he learnt from his family. So far, so good. Most of the dishes actually were excellent. Ambience, wonderful. It was packed. Service was great. I loved it. Except for one thing. In the starters, they had golgappas. And when you order the golgappas, I got one golgappa in a beautiful platter. Now, I grew up in Delhi.
That is disgusting.
Exactly. The very thought of one goal. Firstly, you're having a Golgappa indoors. That's wrong anyway. But then you get one Golgappa. So, guys, I just thought I'd bring you guys down from the more cerebral or even philosophical themes like Anjan put up, and I bring it down to my love, food. Guys, when is an interpretation in the area of food just wrong? My one, it's a single Golgappa. Any thoughts?
So I also think that when it comes to cuisine or anything else for that matter, when you say that this is the moment you have a benchmark, it prevents creativity. It prevents people from trying out different things. So I am absolutely convinced that if you have a first mover advantage, you get to set the tone of the conversation. Anna, what is your take?
Yes, absolutely. I think that these markers, right, you assume familiarity. So when you see a Golgappa, you've gone with a whole mental image of what the experience is going to be like. And if in the absence of that framework, everybody is more open to trying out whatever it is that might come their way. But similarly with films, with books, with anything, I think it, that whole framework informs the experience around it. So I'm
Or
just wondering, if they
Szechuan
called
dosa.
Ray something else, would it really? I mean, if the movie itself was not called Ray, would the response be different? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and some of it is also, India has been a land where we have taken something and adapted it. We are the land of adaptation, so everything is hybrid. I mean, think about it. When you have Szechuan dosa, as Arun says, or when you have gobi Manchurian, the people in China are horrified, but Indians say that, gobi Manchurian क्या गलत है यार? होना चाहिए ना vegetarian के लिए कुछ तो. So so I think it's all of that. Anjan, your take.
I was thinking we should hear from Divya because there's so little time left. But
No,
I
no,
will
Anjan,
only,
go right ahead.
all right. I will only say that just as of yesterday, I have made dal with monkey fruit, and I have actually made myself some homemade golgappas and stuffed them with fried karela and honey, and it came out delicious.
That sounds wrong to me also. I'm so sorry.
I completely agree.
Anjan, that
It's
is
like
wrong. That is
it's like
just
having
wrong.
dal and
Karela,
kela.
God. That's it. All right. I have to now gently take the conversation to, again, more dulcet tones. I was reading this book, or actually, there's this thought in Zen Buddhism, or just the philosophies of Zen, which is called Mushin. I tried translating it. It translates loosely to empty mind. When I tried explaining this to some of my friends here, they couldn't get past the concept of empty. How could empty mind be a good thing? And then I read another interpretation which said beginner's mind. In other words, if we can attain a mind where we don't have the preconceptions. So if I did not know what a Golgappa was, I may have loved Anjan's creation. But I cannot rid myself of my expectation of a Golgappa. And therefore, whether it is in a restaurant or someday at Anjan's place, I will not appreciate what might have been, I'm sure, an absolutely new experience which would have enriched me. So I guess it brings us towards this concept of why do we hate adaptation?